Well, what success looks like for Paxson Wojcik, I think, is being a player that Hubert Davis can count off on coming off the bench. I think if I think there's going to be games where maybe he's not getting any minutes, but I think if he's able to carve out a consistent role off the bench, I would consider that a huge win. I think the biggest hurdle will just be in terms of how he adjusts to the increased size and athleticism of ACC basketball and Power Five basketball in general, coming from Brown for 2 years, where he's second team All Ivy, as well as Loyola Chicago. He definitely had games playing against UNC, Michigan State, some of the top schools. Not to mention practicing against Michigan State players over the past summers with his dad there. But I think the main thing is, can he carve a consistent role off the bench? And if he does, I think part of that will be hitting outside shots and being able to get to the attack the basket when the opportunity presents itself.
And obviously, you make a great point that, yeah, Tar Heel fans may say, oh, he's coming from Brown, blah, 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 blah. Remember, he lit North Carolina up, or at least had some serious buckets and a game face on when he played in the Smith Center just a couple of seasons ago. Sherrell, I'll ask you the second question that we've been doing with these previews. What should fans expect from Paxson Wojcik?
So I'm gonna be like one of those announcers who comes up with a cheesy line and like thinks it's funny and laughs at it. But I
Oh,
think,
you're stealing my gimmick now, bro.
yeah. So I think he should be North Carolina CAO, Chief Agitating Officer, because that is what I think he should do. And the other guy we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is one of them. And we talked about Seth Trimble a few weeks ago. But I think those three are who Carolina needs to be the agitators. And what I mean by that is there's not going to be a huge role for them. Well, for two of them, I think, offensively. I think Trimble's, paths and minutes is we've talked about is his defense. I think Wojcik is kind of similar. I think he has to just go in there and just like make a mess of stuff. There are players who develop that as a skill over time. They
There's entire
agitate.
teams that do
Yeah,
that. Like there's
exactly.
entire squads
Yeah,
that we've seen over the last few years that's their MO.
right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry to step on you.
No, they agitate. They frustrate. They annoy. Um, and I think that's a counter to the athleticism part because he is going to face guys who are more athletic than him. But what he's got to do, to use a phrase, he's got to get up into the guy on when he's on defense, and he's got to bother him. He's got to make him earn every single thing that he gets. And I think if he's able to do that from the defensive side, and then keep his pretty good shooting. I think he was at 38% last year in conference. In the Ivy League, he was up close to 40. So if he can do that, knock down a three every couple games, and in his limited minutes, just frustrate whoever he's guarding, which probably be I would assume the opposing two. I think if he's having to guard opposing threes, that could get a little dicey. But if he can do that, I think that's success for him, and I think that's what people can expect from him is to agitate and to knock down open shots.
We need to find a way to hashtag and also trademark CAO in case it becomes a thing, right? If that becomes one of the things where Hubert Davis and his staff are deploying Paxson Wojcik in that very much, all right, go piss somebody off role, we need to find a way to work on incorporating CAO into a lot more conversations. Sean.
I think the other thing is just, once again, these are Ivy League stats, but he did fill the stat sheet, really strong rebounder, and was able to push the ball. So I think, once again, in the minutes that he is getting, if he's able to attack the defensive boards and help initiate the fast break, I think can be extremely helpful. Good steal numbers as well from the defensive end, which Sherrell was mentioning. And I think from a three-pointer perspective, he didn't shoot the ball well as a junior, so he did have a big jump up last year. So I think that's always a question. What is he, the junior year shooter? Or is he the senior year shooter? But I think one number that jumped out when diving into the stats was he was 46% from three on no dribble 3-point jump shots. So I think, once again, going back to the Elliot Cadeau factor, if they're able to produce open jump shots for some of these guys on the perimeter, I think that's one stat to keep in mind, especially for Wojcik, where maybe that's the area offensively that they're trying to identify for him.
Yeah, good call out, Sherrell.
And I'd add too, you talk about specialists, if we're talking about football, there are guys who are in certain packages and they have pretty much one job in that package. And I think for UNC, you could see a closing lineup where you've got someone like Wojcik who's very smart, who's very tried and true, battle tested, who's a pretty solid free throw shooter, you expect to make the right play. You could see him in some situations where North Carolina's kind of holding on to a lead. Maybe they're up 10-12 at the under 4, and they need someone to just come in who can hit a free throw and is not going to turn the ball over and can dribble. So I could see him having a role, like a specialized role, aside from the chief agitating officer role, also as someone who can come in a closing lineup.
Yeah, it's rare that we've seen that from North Carolina, to have that kind of guy to go in and play those kind of minutes. But I do think fans would love to see that situation where they do have guys that can go in and hold on to a lead and not melt down and not gag the ball away or create havoc for themselves. And it does seem like Paxson Wojcik could fill that role.